Welcome into another exciting edition of Locked On 76ers. Keith Pompey, Marc Farzetta. I was just thinking, Keith, wow, this is great. Sixers rookie VJ Edgecombe. We only see him on the court. Nothing else going on. And now he's pushing Cologne. But with a Hall of Famer, I'll tell you why I'm fine with it. Also, the battle for backup center behind Joel Embiid. We know the Sixers are going to need Bona or Drummond to step up. All that and more when we return on Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And we do thank you for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the FanDuel app today by going to FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com. Keith, I literally was just thinking, you know what's really great about VJ Edgecombe? The only time I see him, he's on the court. He's practicing. He's running around with the team. He's taking part in the open runs out there in Los Angeles. It's great. And then literally the next day, because your phone knows what you're thinking, that's how it works, right? He pops up in a Cologne ad with Dwayne Wade. Now, I'm not judging him at all. This is awesome. If he's getting paid, if this is the endorsement, if he's part of this, good for you. Zero judgment there. Do your thing, young bull, okay? I love the idea, though, that he gets to spend the extra time with a Hall of Famer, though, especially someone who did work his ass off, like a guy like Dwayne Wade, who did improve his game over, the course of his career, and also knew how to play with phenomenal talent, whether that be LeBron James or Shaquille O'Neal. I don't wear cologne, not a cologne guy, but I love this pairing right there, and it absolutely, pun intended, passes my smell test, Keith.
Yeah, it absolutely. I mean, this is a great get. I mean, again, what is it? Is a commercial, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, is also a guy who was one of his idols, a guy who he kind of models his game after, right? We're talking about two guys who are 6'4", two guys who, play larger than their height. And it's crazy to say that with 6'4" because they both had bounce, you know what I mean? And Dwayne Wade is a guy who, he aspires to be, Dwayne Wade was as great of a basketball player he wasn't exactly the headliner. I mean, he was one of the headliners, but he wasn't like Carmelo Anthony. He wasn't LeBron James. He wasn't Darko Milicic, right, of that draft. But you look at him and, he's in the Hall of Fame. I mean, he has a statue. He won multiple championships. He's going to go down as one of the all-time greats. So, just being there, meeting him, and I don't know if they had a prior relationship, but anytime that you could get FaceTime with this guy is beneficial, and is a guy that he can go to from time to time and say, hey, what did you do in this situation? How can I work on that? Do you have any advice for something else? So I think it's a win-win for Edgecombe, and it should give him something to aspire to be, because think about it. He's a young guy. That commercial, they could have had anybody else do that commercial. But I guess they see the similarities and wanted him to be in that commercial with Dwayne Wade.
Mm-hmm. Something like this, I've always said this, like, I was a good kid, Keith, but I was a terrible student. I just looked at it as, there's an audience here, not it's a classroom, So getting with other people that were like-minded is very helpful to learn, whether it's in sports, whether it's in other activities, whatever. What I'm saying is time away from the thing you're supposed to be doing with people that think similar to you. Again, I'll reiterate work ethic. I'll reiterate being able to work well with other talent around you, I think is invaluable. And to be able to stand there and ask a question and get that time with someone like Dwayne Wade is incredible for a guy like VJ Edgecombe, because even if you ask the most basic question, what would you tell you when you were my age? If you had to go back and what do you wish somebody would have told you? Even something like that. And that could be financial. That could be about the way you run your life. That could be anything that makes it easier to focus on the task at hand, the job, which is playing the game. Having a resource like that. And from what I've heard, Dwayne Wade is great with the younger players, the younger generation. He has absolutely taken on a mentor's role with that. I got friends that worked with him in the Olympics when he was doing commentary over there, and all the younger guys, they can flock to a guy like Dwayne Wade because he'll give advice without preaching. You know, he won't make you feel like an idiot for asking a question. Like, he's very open and honest about that. So when I saw this, and originally it just came up in my algorithm as, you know, pictures with him and Dwayne Wade, I thought, oh boy, what's this about? Cologne, wait, what? And then literally you see them like chopping it up like that. And they could be talking about anything. But a guy like Dwayne Wade can help expedite the maturation process of already mature, going to be a rookie in the NBA. He can help push that along for someone that already has a great work ethic, but now knowing how to harness that a little bit more because of maybe some advice he got from Dwayne Wade, I think only helps expedite that process.
Yeah, I agree 100%. 100%. And, you know, to me, and he seems like the type of guy who picks a lot of people's brain too, right? You know, he just seems that guy. If I was him, I was like, hey, next summer, you mind if I come down to Miami and spend a couple weeks with you, working out with you? I mean, I just all that, you know,
Right.
it's, you know, I don't know. I like, you know, it's funny. We go back and I say this over and over again. I liked Ace Bailey. I felt like Ace Bailey had the you know, he has the biggest upside.
Mhm.
And if it was me, I probably would have drafted Ace Bailey, right? Most likely I would have drafted Ace Bailey. But the things that I've seen out of VJ Edgecombe,
Yeah.
the maturity
Me
and
too.
all that other stuff, is kind of sort of like, hey, he's a good pick, right? It's just a matter of how you're going to utilize him, right, with these other guards. But if I'm him, you know, I would just soak all this stuff up, everything. I mean, because he has a chance to be special, you know, in this league.
Yeah, we mentioned the interview Tyrese Maxey did with RB, Philly Take with RB. And one of the things that Maxey also talked about was when he was asked about VJ Edgecombe, it wasn't like, oh, VJ, oh, the bad, he's great. You know, it wasn't like a personal connection. And I'm not judging that. I'm not saying that's negative. I'm saying it's extremely positive that even Maxey hasn't cracked the code on who VJ Edgecombe is yet. But one thing he does understand is that VJ Edgecombe just wants to be great. He's a player that wants to show up. He wants to work his tail off. And when he leaves the gym, he wants to be better. And it's the same point you always reiterate about Tyrese Maxey is 1% better. Tomorrow will be 1% better. Then the next day be 1% better after that and 1% better. And you just keep on getting better. And VJ Edgecombe, he subscribes to that same mentality. So with that, we haven't seen him other than do his workouts on the court. The Rico Hines runs out there in Los Angeles. We see him pop up in this Cologne advertisement, you know, with Dwayne Wade, of all things. And we've seen him in the highlight reels that they've released from practices at Camden before camp really gets underway. In the time he's drafted to right now, leading into camp getting underway, is there anything you learned about VJ Edgecombe or anything that's really stood out to you about VJ Edgecombe as far as the player that the 76ers drafted number 3 overall?
You know, here's a crazy thing. Like, you know, VJ Edgecombe is actually taller than you think. Like, he's longer than you think. So he's listed as 6'4". But some people are saying he was more like 6'3" or 6 whatever, right? But when you see him, his length stands out to you. So you look at his frame and you say, wow, you know, in a couple of years in the NBA, as his body develops more, you know, he's going to be, you know, a nice sized guy. So he's that way. The thing that really stands out to me is how his ability to get to the rim is kind of effortless. You know, he's like a pogo stick. You know, he goes in and boing, and then he's right there. So those are two of the biggest things. The competitiveness is there too as well, you know. But to me, his length, his leaping ability, the way that he does everything so effortlessly with that, and you know, I think the competitiveness, those are the things that really stood out to me thus far. Now, again, he has to work on his jumping. Once he gets that, though, he's going to be a better all-around player. But when you look at the tools, he has a lot to work with.
Yeah, the tools in that toolbox. Yeah, some of them need some sharpening, some refining, you know, all that. But Yeah, he's definitely got him. And I really look forward to seeing how he attacks his rookie year. Really look forward to that. And yeah, I do also look forward to hearing about what he has to say on Media Day, just about really the transition, because Jared McCain has set a really high bar for guys coming out of Summer League and then all of a sudden breaking out onto the scene in the regular season. We've referenced it many times. Jared McCain struggled in Summer League. Then we didn't see him. We hear Nick Nurse talk about him 100 times as a G League player, potentially up and down. Daryl Morey, same thing. And then you see him play 23 games and he's Rookie of the Year caliber. That's what he brought to the table for those 23 games. VJ Edgecome's a guy that had a 28-point game in the Summer League, had a hell of a fourth quarter in his second game in the Summer League after that little injury that we talked about so many times. And now he's getting an opportunity to show what he could do in camp and show you how NBA ready he is. McCain set the bar really high, and I think VJ Edgecombe is aware of that. Not to the point where he's competitive against McCain, but competitive against the standard, competing against the standard of how much of a leap he could take from Summer League to day one of the regular season. I think that is something that he prides himself on, the work ethic to get to that standard. Now, he's not holding himself accountable to Jared McCain. I'm not painting that picture. But I'm just saying, okay, the standard's been set in terms of overall improvement. Let me get to that or exceed it. Do you think that is something that plays in on his mind a little bit?
Oh, yeah, it does. It does. Like, these guys are all competitive, all of them. And I do think that plays in his mind because, let's face it. When you get drafted, that is a great night. But basically after Summer League, you basically are just another rookie in the league, and you're fighting and battling to get that second contract. Think of how many guys that were lottery picks or everybody raved over, and then after the NBA season, actual season started, they don't talk about them anymore. And then next thing you know, you see them become journeymen or just out the league altogether, playing overseas. So to me, I feel like he's that type of person who just wants to make sure that he takes advantage of each opportunity and keeps elevating his game as he goes along. And to be honest with you, this is the perfect situation for him. I do know that Paul George is a guy who, we don't know what level he's going to play at this year. The same with Joel Embiid, Kyle Lowry, Eric Gordon. If you're a young cat and you got these type of guys in there, this is what you want, because, it's all about your career, not just getting paid as a rookie or a second-year player. It's all about your career. And this is a pretty good situation for a young guard. It really is.
Mm-hmm. No, couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. When we come back, we're going to talk about a position we haven't focused in a lot on when not naming the name Joel Embiid. There's two other guys that can play center for this Sixers team in the upcoming season. Talk about that more when we return. This is Locked On 76ers on Locked On Sixers YouTube channel. And right now, let me tell you about the fantastic people at Monarch Money. You take advantage of all Monarch Money has to offer. Well, you should be, especially when it comes to saving for that big vacation, maybe that new car, maybe the kids going to college. Most people can't even name their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's a 401k, whether it's properties, whether it's investments, whatever it might be. Monarch Money enters the fray and helps you out with everything. Monarch Money is for people with busy lives, and if you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is here for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you so you can link all your accounts in just minutes. See clear data visuals, get smart characterization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. My personal kryptonite. Don't let financial opportunity slip through your cracks. Use promo code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com. That's promo code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with promo code LOCKEDONNBA. At the end of last season, Keith, and about 3-4 months ago now when I started doing this fine little program with you, I laid it out on the table. I told you how I felt about everything with the Sixers. And two of the takeaways I had from last year were Quentin Grimes, I want him on my team next year. I want him to run the second unit at the very least. we still think he's going to be back. We'll talk more about that in Grimes Watch. And then the other is Adem Bona is the backup center for Joel Embiid. And if he's not there right now, he will quickly ascend to that role. That was my takeaway from the end of last year, watching the final 20-plus games with no Maxey, Oubre, Embiid, PG. Those are my two major takeaways of last year. Has Bona worked himself in to being the number one guy behind Joel Embiid, or should I say being the number one guy in nights where Joel Embiid is what is it again? Their left knee managing his injury. They're injuring his left knee, whatever. Has Bona worked himself into that role?
It's weird. You're talking about on nights that Joel's not playing, right?
Correct.
I don't know about that. And again, I think that's something that we have to see. That's going to be one of those competitions that you have to see. My only concern about that is that when we look at this in lineup right now, if you take Joel Embiid off the floor, out of the starting lineup, the next biggest player is Paul George, who's 6'8", right? Adem Bona is listed as 6'10", but he's actually 6'8". I just think that that's a small lineup, right? I just do. I think now, again, when we look at Andre Drummond, you'll say to yourself, like, okay, but this dude is 32. He's 32. He turned 32 on August the 10th. He's been in the league for 13 seasons. There was a drop off in his play. But again, when you look at it, he averaged 7.3 points, 7.8 rebounds, last season. And he didn't play a lot of minutes. To me, I feel like just having a big body, at least to start out games and stuff like that, when Joel Embiid's not playing, is something that you probably want. And then you can go to switch to different lineups. And Adem Bona, to me, just seems like the type of guy who can be a solid change of pace guy for him. Kind of similar to like how Paul Reed was. You remember how kind of similar like how Dwight Howard was, change of pace. You remember how when Dwight Howard was the backup center for Joel, but then whenever Joel missed the game, they would start Thomas Bryant, right? And then Dwight Howard would come off the bench because he brought that type of energy. Mm-hmm. Right now, I look at Adem Bona as being that type of guy, who can block shots, run the floor, do a lot of things. So although Drummond might be a starter if Embiid's not playing, I do see the element that Bona brings is great for the Sixers in regards to the energy element coming off the bench.
I love that. I'll take that, and that does make a ton of sense as far as the change of pace, as you mentioned, as far as providing a different flow certainly to the game, where he'll consistently be the backup, but especially on a night where Drummond is the starter, you might see more minutes next to Adem Bona's name throughout the game, as opposed to just being the guy with the check mark next to the starter for that game. And I love that because I want to continue to let him grow. But I think one of the ways you let him grow is to continue to allow him to perfect what I think he already does well, which is run the floor, attack the rim, get rebounds, block shots. Let him be in that comfort zone before he's got to be looked at as the guy without Joel Embiid. Now, I don't mean leading scorer, but the number one center on this team without Joel Embiid. So there's something to maybe the developmental process for him when it comes to, all right, I still know I got to improve on these things. And he improved on them. He was given the space to improve upon them in the last 20 games of last year. And then really in the last 5-10 games of the season, you really started to see, 10 rebounds. You started to see 12 points, started to see 13 points. You started to see him really build and get more comfortable in that role. Now, similar to what I do with Quentin Grimes, I do consider the competition. But I don't care if they're playing the famous Sisters of the Poor. I don't care if they're playing the Washington Generals, Keith. It was all about that player having the confidence in his own game to continue to take steps forward. I saw that from Bona. If he could continue that same process even without being a starter, which I think he can, then I think the Sixers are going to be in a great spot on nights, other than just having Joel Embiid healthy, a great spot on nights when Joel Embiid is healthy.
I agree 100%.
My man. Now Drummond. My man, pots and pans. Now Andre Drummond. $5 million player option. So here he is. We all expected him to be back. He's back. Are we looking at 20 minutes a night on a good night? What do you think? Where do you think he's at as far as the minutes he's going to be able to give this team?
I mean, that's a great question. 20 minutes a night, that's basically saying he's going to play half the game. I don't see that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't. Now, maybe. And the reason why I'm saying that is because, we're also looking at it where, we're talking about these two guys, but they also have a guy in Janai Broom. I mean, he might be a ways away for demanding a lot of minutes in the rotation.
Yeah, right.
But then when you talk about Trendon Watford, right, he's a guy that can, they can do different lineups, because I also believe that what we're going to see is we'll probably see some small ball lineups out there from time to time where you got guys out there who are able to play positionless basketball. The thing about Drummond is, like, can he play positionless? Nah, like, you're not going to put him on the guard. You're not going to put him on the wing. You know what I'm saying? So
he's got one position.
Yeah, he has one position, and, like last year he tried to shoot threes and he shot 15%. I mean, that's higher than his average, but I mean, it is. His average was 12.9. So he shot 15%. But again, it's like, that's not the game that he wants. Now, last year, what he did was, he averaged 18.8 minutes a game, right?
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of that came with Embiid not playing. So if Embiid doesn't play, yeah, but I also think that we'll see more of Adem Bona too, right? The young guy. So that could take away from some of those minutes. And that's crazy because the year before that, he averaged 17.1 with Chicago. So I think that we could see around 15 to 16. I mean, depending on what Embiid does.
Yeah. Last thing on Drummond, I feel as if Joel Embiid is playing, and if he's, again, playing around the 60 games, 55 games, then I think you could be looking at a situation where you have 55 to 60 games with Joel Embiid, where they'll ask Drummond to give you the spurts where he won't play. In those games, I don't see him playing 18 minutes, 20 minutes. He might play more to the 12-minute type of realm, I think. But I think in those 12 minutes, that's where he just unloads the tank. And then in games where you don't have Joel Embiid, that's where it's like, all right, let's preserve the energy until that fourth quarter, because they're still going to need him in the fourth. That's the way I could see that shaking out.
I agree.
When we come back, I want to make sure we get into this again. It is Quentin Grimes. It is Grimes Watch. We hope as camp approaches and media day gets underway Friday. Keith, I know you'll be over there in Camden breaking it all down with those fine people there with the Sixers. But Grimes and another guard that I want to make sure we revisit and what his near future could hold in Philadelphia. All that more when we return. This is Locked On 76ers on the Locked On Sixers YouTube channel. And now let me tell you about FanDuel. NFL season is upon us. Your Eagles are now 3-0 after an incredible come-from-behind victory. Exclamation pointed by Jordan Davis's blocked field goal there against the Rams. Some bad beats for some people there. But NFL season well upon us now. FanDuel is making you ready for kickoff every single game day. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the FanDuel app. Makes it so easy to bet on these games with FanDuel. Makes each game day that much more exciting, whether it be football, whether it be the upcoming basketball season and your 10-9-8 76ers, whatever it might be. FanDuel has you covered. It's quick. It's easy. It's the best way to add a little bit more energy to your game day. So are you ready? Download the FanDuel app right now by using FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to get started and place your first $5 bet. And if it hits, $300 in bonus bets to use across the FanDuel app. So go to FanDuel.com. Jared McCain is the guard I want to ask you about here. VJ Edgecombe, we talked about in the open of the show. We've talked a lot about Quentin Grimes. We'll get to Grimes watch in a second. We've talked a lot about Tyrese Maxey this offseason and how much better he could be. I've joked about whether or not a player has ever won 2 Most Improved Player awards in their careers. Like, he got really good, and then, oh my God, he got even better. I'd love to see that for Tyrese Maxey. But Jared McCain is a guy that had such a low bar set for him by the organization. And I know we go to this a lot, or at least I do. Nick Nurse was talking about how he was a G Leaguer. He was going to be, so he'll spend some time in the G League and then he'll be up with us, spend some time in the G League. And then he comes out playing the way that he played last year. Was he just, in your opinion, Keith, just playing well over his head? Or did the Sixers just did they oversell the idea of him not being Rookie of the Year potential simply to not put pressure on him? Or do you think he does have that next step in him to get even better than what we saw in 23 games last year?
I actually think that everything just broke the right way for him. I mean, opportunities came. And I feel like I don't think that they were actually like setting the bar low for him.
Okay.
This is what I think. I think that when they came into the season, they went out there and they got all those free agents, right? They free agent signees, they got Paul George, this and that. So typically on a championship caliber team, a rookie rarely plays. So it's kind of like, you're like for the future. You're like, you know what I'm saying? You're like,
right.
You're
Yeah.
So with that being said, it was one of those things where you look at it and you say, well, he's not going to be able to make the lineup, crack the lineup probably. Like, we're not going to utilize him, but let's let him go down to the G League and get some reps and stuff like that. But I felt like what happened was it was some of the guys that they played just didn't play well, the older ones. And then you had the injuries, and then you had to play him. And he just was a big time player, and he stood out in those moments. So at that point, you was like, oh, no, we can't send him down now. So I think that's what happened. I do think that there is going to be a progression for him, right? First of all, we want to see how healthy he is. He seems to be moving well with his TikToks and everything like that. But I do think that there's going to be a progression. And let's face it, motivation too. Because, you go from being that guy where you feel like you're going to be the man, and then when you're injured and you're away from the team, sometimes you feel like the forgotten one. I'm not saying he does, but there's that motivation where, everybody used to come up to you and want to talk to you. They want to interview you. Now you're just walking by and everyone's talking about everybody else. They got the new toys on the team, you know what I mean, so to speak. So, yeah, I think that he'll do well, but I do think that he benefited from being able to take the bull by the horn, so to speak, and excel.
I could just imagine you talking to whoever your writing mentor was and just be like, no. In the future, we're going to break down whether or not a guy's healthy by watching him dance on a social media app called TikTok, where that player is going to have 5 million people following him, if you could believe it.
No, isn't that crazy? He's the man.
I don't want to break the streak, but has Quentin Grimes been signed yet, Keith?
Nah, not yet.
All right, well, that does it for this episode of Locked On 76ers. His name is Keith Pompey. My name is Marc Farzetta. We got camp starting up later this week. We'll be back with you guys tomorrow with a brand new edition of Locked On 76ers. So make sure you guys like and subscribe to Locked On 76ers, especially with the season fast approaching. His name is Keith Pompey. Make sure you're reading him on Inquirer.com, obviously. My name is Marc Farzetta. I'll be back with you guys tonight for a Phillies Locked On Phillies postcast tonight. So I look forward to breaking that down for you as the talk about something approaching, not just the 76ers camp, but the Phillies end of the season and playoff push approaching. They got the Marlins tonight. Edward Cabrera will take on Christopher Sanchez. That'll be a 6:45 start time tonight in South Philadelphia. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Talk to you guys tomorrow.